The only way to have power is to be politically engaged, which means you have to vote. In order to vote, you must be registered. The only way to have power is to be politically engaged, which means you have to vote. In order to vote, you must be registered. The only way to have power is to be politically engaged, which means you have to vote. In order to vote, you must be registered. The only way to have power is to be politically engaged, which means you have to vote. In order to vote, you must be registered. Welcome to One Hartford. Once again, it's time to talk about all things political. It's early in the morning because one of the members here at the end of the counter has to go to the dentist. But it's an end of the year review. And it should be fun. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year. Happy Three Kings Day. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Hanukkah. Happy all the holidays that you celebrate this time of year. Joining me, of course, here at the end of the counter, we've got the one and only Angel Morales.
Good morning.
How you doing, Angel?
Okay.
How was your 2009?
Not so-so, I would say.
So-so?
Yeah.
All right. You're hanging in there, though.
Hanging in there.
All right. It'll get better. It'll get better. We also have, of course, Bishop John Selders. How you doing, sir?
I'm good.
Very good. How was your 2009?
It was this has been an interesting year. Few highs, few lows, lots of mids.
Mm-hmm.
God is good, though.
Amen to that. And of course, retired Deputy Chief of Police for Hartford, Gerry Pleasent. How are you, Gerry?
Wonderful.
So how are you making out up there at McDonald's?
Very well. They still serve the best coffee in town.
Human zone, Gerry.
You didn't ask me about...
How was your 2009?
No, I must say, I've been blessed.
All right.
Life is good.
Life is good.
Cannot complain.
Can't complain. All right. Well, that's good. And of course, last but not least is the one and only, the Notorious.
I think you skipped somebody.
7.
Oh, I'm sorry. 7. How's your year been? You were born? Oh my, it must have been traumatic. Well, hey, you have that one of those things. 7 McCauley is here joining us today, and so that's the deal. And now we go to the Notorious, the one and only Kevin Brookman.
Good morning.
How was your 2009?
Somebody's phone isn't on vibrate.
You know, the phone's on vibrate, but the alarm isn't. That's my 9 o'clock wake-up alarm.
Obviously, it didn't work last week, but...
No, it did not.
Anyways,
it'll go off.
Okay.
It should go off right about now.
the director's we gotta turn it on. Okay. Well, for the end of the year, it's Christmas time. And I know these boxes are cutting down on the viewer's view of my fine face here. So I need to hand these out and get them out of the way. First one up is for you, Gerry.
A box for Gerry.
There's a lot of planning that goes into this program and a lot of prep beforehand. And Gerry always slows us down because he forgets a couple things. One is his makeup, which he uses Naisha.
Wait a minute. I'm going to stop you right now. You know, I don't think you're funny. You know, I'm very happy. Wait a minute. Maybe I'm overconfident, but I'm very happy with me. I wish you could say the same.
Well, here, since this is always an issue before every show, this should take you through the next few years. And there's
700
Yay!
Let me explain to the audience here. When I have coffee at Stan's house, for some reason he has neither Splendor nor Equal nor anything else resembling the two. So Kevin, I appreciate your sarcastic gesture.
You still got a few days to get mine, Gerry. This is one of the important gifts here. You know, I think it's important that for new children and parents raising a child in Hartford, that we give them positive influences in their lives and, positive things to look up to. So this is for 7, to try to get her on the right path as she gets older and grows.
Looking with anticipation and bated breath.
With her own little booties.
Red sock booty.
Red socks with the...
Wrong team, but okay. Very nice outfit.
So
She's looking at
by this time next year, she'll be fitting into it. They didn't have anything much smaller.
I guess she's going to be a Red Sox fan.
So that's to get the child on the right.
7, you're gonna be a Red Sox fan? Okay, Uncle Kevin.
We'll give you a couple gifts that may not really be
It's her
appreciated.
4 uncles, you know.
But, here's one for Angel. As he makes his rounds, we know he's out there on the campaign trail trying to run for state rep in the 4th district, from what I understand. And
Are you, Angel?
with all this H1N1, I know you're kissing a lot of babies, shaking a lot of hands. Here's hand sanitizer for you, so you don't come down with the flu or anything.
Thank you.
That's appreciative.
Thank you very much.
You're going to need that. You're going to do a lot of handshaking, Angel.
All right.
Lord.
Where's John's gift?
It's official.
Oh, John, here it is. This took a lot of work to find this.
Quite sure.
We joke quite a bit about your schedule and, working 1 day a week and everything else. And I know how difficult it must be to find a daily planner. But after a lot of searching, I found one that only has Sundays. So now, no sense wasting paper.
No sense wasting
Oh,
paper.
you can-
Just 1 day a week that works.
1 day a week.
It's
Sunday planner.
You don't have to worry about it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Let's see. Oh, this is for the new executive director of Hartford Public Access. I really don't get this one, but I heard a lot of people saying she needed this and that she needed to get one. So, I'm not sure why, but I got her clue. I heard her saying she needs to get a clue. So,
Merry Christmas. We love you, Billy. We love you. We love you. Those are accolades of love.
Okay,
Wow,
let's
that's a
see.
heavy clue.
yeah, that's... Which... I wonder if I should do the City Hall one first or the one for my new adopted family, but I'll do the City Hall one first.
Here we go.
And this is, I've got to give the mayor some credit. We've been very critical of the way he's handled things the last few years.
You have been good.
Yeah, we know it's fair. You're drinking the Kool-Aid, but we've been very critical, and I think we need to give credit where credit is due. And for those people who haven't been in City Hall lately, it's decorated beautifully with the poinsettias and the poinsettia tree. But anyways, a lot of people don't know about the gift shop that's been opened on the 2nd floor in the mayor's office. John, your eyes, it's priceless. So anyways, the gift shop that's been opened.
For the holidays.
And this is, it comes with it. You can get this autographed. It's the City Hall gift pack. The mayor, I believe, will autograph those. One of the things I like the best, and it's a very small book, but it's John Rose's book, FOI for Dummies. Now, it's not a big book because he doesn't have a lot to put in there. But the one thing that's very nice about it, at the back, it's folded up in here, you can't see it, but in the back of this, it comes with a blank check to cover any FOI fines or appeals. So if you buy this book and you get fined by FOI or you have to appeal, the city will cover the cost, no expense spared, they'll just pay for anything. The 2 things I really like, because everybody knows I like desserts and sweets. One was...
Not that you need it, but...
the baked goods that are available. And you have to be careful when you eat these, because in the back of every muffin, baked in is a handcuff key. And then they had this great cranberry nut loaf. Very good. I've already eaten one of them already. But in every one of those, baked inside is a hacksaw blade. Things are fun. You get a hacksaw blade baked right into the loaf of cranberry walnut bread. Very good bread, by the way, but make sure you cut in and get the blade out first. And again, John Rose's FOI for Dummies.
This is in the gift shop on the second floor.
And anything spent there goes to defray the deficit. Nobody's making any money off this except the city. So if you have time, get down there, do some shopping. It's in the, where it says the Honorable Eddie A. Perez on the door. Go in there and to the left, and the gift shop is on the second floor of City Hall. Last but not least, you know, I like buying a lot of presents for my family. So this took a little bit of doing, but, you know, Councilwoman Winch offered for me to join her family when she said I need to get a life on City Line. So a few things, just a small, as my new adopted family. You probably, a lot of people don't realize it, but the councilwoman likes sunflower seeds. And actually on one of her trips recently, she put in for reimbursement for $1.95 worth of sunflower seeds that she bought on a trip. So I've got her several bags of sunflower seeds. So she can, you know, no more expense to the city, enjoy yourself without any guilt that you're gonna have to be reimbursed. Another issue that's, you know, not to make light of this, but, you know, I want to see her back on the road again, and it's hard getting dial-a-ride to stop by. But Mako, we were able to get one free paint job on any yellow Hummer. The only problem is valid registration required before they'll do it.
No.
If you could see the looks between the camera person, John Selders over here going nuts. And the other part is when she is ready to register her car, this took a lot of doing through the motor vehicle commissioner. But they gave us, you know, you get the tags as you go in to get in line. They gave us, number one, it's valid on any Monday at any motor vehicle office. So
Wait,
just go in.
On Monday?
Yeah.
Okay.
On Monday.
Why, what's the problem?
Monday's closed.
Closed.
Oh, they're closed. Oh.
No wonder they were so
It's no good.
Well, maybe you can just cross that out. Just cross out the valid anyway. But there, from DMV, number one, get right to the front of the line when you go to register that car. And that's about it.
It's the holiday season.
Oh, dear. Merry Christmas.
And to all.
Oh boy, okay.
Dan?
I'm speechless. I'm speechless.
We need to bring some comedy into this. We're always too serious.
Yes, this does lighten it up a little bit.
I'm really
I
bad
like
at
that
shape.
though. I'm gonna try. If she doesn't use that, maybe I can use
Front
it.
of the line.
Just
And
go
they're
down.
closed on
I'm
Mondays,
gonna go
huh?
wait until they open.
Maybe I can get her one for Saturday afternoons or something.
Yeah, they closed them too.
Oh. Oh, well. I tried, Grandma.
Wow. One Hartford's holiday show. And year in review, all the things that have gone on. So it's been quite a year. You know, I think we've made some friends.
And some enemies.
I just thought of another gift I should have
What's
got. For Jerry when he goes to McDonald's. One of those don't snitch t-shirts.
Oh, stop snitching. Right. I got a stop snitching t-shirt.
Kevin,
A big stop sign on it.
Kevin, now, I don't think you're funny. You're funny one bit. Don't you think it's time for the new year to get a life?
He has a life.
That's what my new family, my adopted family suggested, and I have done that.
No. But
Can we get some shots of Bishop Selder?
No,
His
no.
reactions over here.
I'm
We
doing
need-
okay.
we got some problems coming up for the new year.
What do we got coming up in 2010?
From what I understand, the state's planning additional cuts to the city.
Yeah.
And if that were to take place, not only Hartford, but the other cities, and the big cities in the state, we have problems now trying to finance some of the programs to help people. It's going to be bad. You could expect, I think, crime to go up.
As a result of the state cutbacks?
Well, people are not going to stand around with empty pockets.
Yeah, but I don't know that the state cutbacks I mean, you might see a reduction in a lot of different things, but I wouldn't necessarily relate that directly to crime unless you're cutting back half the police department.
Not necessarily the police department, but some of the other programs that help people
Like what?
get ahead, you know. Some of the job programs, also the city itself may have, it's undergoing further cuts, and that certainly will impact.
Yeah, I was in a meeting the other day about the state budget, and the cuts, just the proposed cuts for all of the human services,
Right.
But in particular, Head Start and some of the healthcare provisions that the state provides for folk who need it. I was pretty appalled in the millions of dollars that they're trying to cut. You know, there is going to have to be some resolution, and quite frankly, I'm a bit. The governor and the legislature are just way far apart, and I don't quite know how they get closer. And I understand the Senate has a good deal to do with that, because the House, you know, can ride pretty well with a more liberal treatment of those human services. But the state Senate, that House is pretty much in Rail's pocket, or at least there's an anticipation of such. So there is this split in between the governor and lawmakers.
Okay, so just speaking on the subject, what's your take on this? What do you see as a consequence of these cuts?
Well, I would hope we could find a middle way, and so that's my take.
Okay, for the sake of argument, let's say that is not accomplished.
I don't want to do that, because if the governor gets the cuts that she has proposed, we're going to be hurting. And I understand the money is a factor. We've got to. There's something has to be done, and we're going to have to find some imaginative ways to do that. But I don't. Here's what I don't want to do right now. I don't know all of the full range. There's still so many questions to be answered for me. Just the few things I've been hearing as a person of faith and a faith leader, I'm concerned, and my faith compels me to say there are human beings here that depend on vital services that money provides, that the state provides, and we got to find a way to do something different. And I don't know what that is in whole. There are some proposals out there, like some tax hikes to those who can pay more to do more. There are other kinds of imaginative proposals being laid out there. I just don't know. And what I'm also very reticent to is the fact that Hartford gets its fair share of that state money. And Bridgeport and New Haven. So these cities will be decimated even more so.
A big part of that, though, is that, and there will be state reps that take offense with this, but we don't have a unified voice at the Capitol. We don't have the clout we should have at the Capitol. And even at the Capitol, the people that need to make the tough decisions won't, because it's all politically based. If I make a cut here, then I'll alienate that voting block, so we can't do that. If we make a cut over here, we'll alienate that voting block. It means I may not get reelected next time, so we can't do that. We didn't get into this mess either on the city level or on the state level, or even nationally for that matter, overnight. We've got people that are far smarter than us that were predicting this far out. Right. And now that it's actually come to reality and the checkbook is almost empty, oh geez, how do we do this? That's like going and getting insurance on your house after the fire. It's a little too late. We should have been planning for this. If all of a sudden, we're finding tens of millions of dollars that can be cut, and let's cut this, let's cut that. How many years have we spent those tens of millions of dollars when we should have been saving it for exactly where we're at today? So there's a lot of poor planning on the part of politicians, Kevin, both locally and statewide.
You frequently comment on the city government. Okay, I think it's safe to say there will be additional cuts. If you were in the planning position, where would you make those cuts?
I would, and we alluded to it last week and never really got the conversation going because of time. I would say, and this definitely will not be popular, but I would say we need to, one of the first areas, you don't want to cut public safety because of the problem we have with crime. But I think if you look at most of our suburban counterparts, whether it's East Hartford, right, West Hartford, New Britain, their fire departments have been cut. And when they need help now, they go to the surrounding towns for mutual aid.
Right.
I'm not sure we can afford the number of firefighters we have, and again, this is gonna be
Okay.
a big deal saying this, but I don't think we can afford the number of firefighters and the minimum staffing levels we have for the amount of time, how often do we have a working fire or have, the majority of our fire units tied up? It's very rarely. And in those situations, that's when you rely on your neighbors who rely on us all the time. West Hartford, New Britain, East Hartford, they have no problem. Norwich has called us for fires. So they have no problem calling us for that. So I would say look at, and again, all these are contractual, but I think when you get into certain points, you gotta, look at opening contracts or realizing there's gonna be huge layoffs of your union members.
One of the things I would look at is, first of all, I think you need to assess what are my calls for services? What does that picture look like?
And I'm not saying the fire department, we've got a top-notch fire department, and making
But you
cuts may
understand what I'm
reduce that a little bit.
saying? Do our call for services demand the level of staffing that we presently have?
I'm not an expert in it, but I would
I don't know.
venture to say
I don't know.
maybe not.
What I think what you're raising is the conversation about regionalism.
That's
That's what you're raising,
Yeah.
Kevin, and I think
And we've talked about that a lot.
we have, and I think we're going to the state dilemma, the state fiscal dilemma, is going to call for us in a
Yes.
new way to think about ourselves in a regional way, and money and stimulus money, I understand, is geared toward how are you working across municipalities and counties, and we're going to have to recover what was lost and probably what never has been here in the state of Connecticut and in New England around county and county support and networks and how we do the region. The region benefits from Hartford, and as Hartford goes, so goes the region for sure.
Well, I think, and part of that, the stimulus money, I'm not confident in the way that's being managed, that it's going for the right purposes. We talked a few weeks ago about New York State, where stimulus money apparently went to revamp all their license plates. They're going to a new color or new style license plate, and they said it created a couple hundred jobs. What they didn't say is that those couple hundred jobs were prison inmates making probably a nickel an hour, making new license plates. As you drive around, you see a lot of beautiful new signs on roadways. Furnish as part of the stimulus act or whatever. Well, that's nice that we're putting sign makers to work, but what is it actually doing? That sign on the side of the highway doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, other than maybe the person that made it. So I don't know how many new jobs are actually being created. And again, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors with that program too. Right. But going back to the city level, we started to talk last week about things that could be cut. As an example, the mayor's driver, some of the 311 services. And I think if you walk through City Hall, you'll see it's very top heavy.
Did you say 311? Yeah. Did you say 311?
Yes.
Have you all tried to call 311 recently? You should try to call 311 recently. Just do it. Do yourself a favor and see if we don't need to revamp that idea. Okay.
That's part of what we talked. You weren't here last week.
Ooh, yeah, I saw.
You were saying hooky, but you talk to people and you hear far more horror stories.
Oh my God!
I had to call them 5-6 times and nothing ever got done, and then I had to call Public Works and they finally came out and did it. So 311 obviously isn't working. And I had this conversation with a council person last week who really wasn't too committed on it, but agreed also that it doesn't seem to be working.
I think 311 works for the purpose for which it was established, which is data mining.
Yeah.
So
it's exactly
as a data mine and tapping into who calls and who was whose calls were remedied and how those were remedied and doing the follow-up. It's like a big database, which works real good during voting times, particularly if you're the incumbent. But beyond that, it's definitely something that could be sliced, diced, and disposed of. And there are going to be several things, but you save $1 a penny at a time. And a little bit here, a little bit there, and before long you get to where you need to be. The problem with Hartford is that the way people were laid off, the way departments were restructured in previous rounds, in my opinion, was reckless. And now that we're heading toward extremely tough times, it's a disaster, because you're going to undermine the ability of the departments to continue to do the work that they do. And some might even think that there isn't some sort of strategic plan behind this, or as Bruce Rubenstein likes to call it, a cabal at play here, which may be pushing many of Hartford's urban centers into regionalism. Because now that the rubber's going to hit the road, there's just no money. Serious changes are going to have to come. There's just something has to give. Something has to give, and with all of the different, you've got the capital region, you got Krog, you've got, and I'm sure all like Bridgeport, Norwich, Haven,
Waterbury, in that area, that region.
Right, and so I think there's going to be a broader and bigger discussion as to where the power centers are in the new regional government. Because right now, Hartford is dysfunctional. I mean, just think of it this way. If we had to regionalize the 5 towns in this area, let's just take, for example, the franchise towns for the cable. Bloomfield, West Hartford, with Simsbury, Wethersfield, East Hartford.
Manchester?
No.
In Windsor.
Windsor.
All
right.
Who's south? Glastonbury?
No, not Glastonbury. But if those towns all had to, were forced by the legislature, they recut, like Enfield wasn't always Enfield. Where would the seat of power be? Would it still be 169 towns? Maybe they need 100 towns and start regionalizing fire, police, schools. I mean, if you really stop and think about it, it's not a very fiscally responsible thing for everybody to have every little thing in every little town. And I can see this becoming a really big discussion as we enter into economic hard times. And when people's backs are against the wall, they do things they would not normally do.
Some aspect of policing is already regionalized, and I can see this expanding. You take, if there's a molecular homicide or a serious accident, there's a group of men that comprise a special traffic investigation unit.
But Hartford's not part of that.
Yes, it is.
No, we are not part of the regional team.
Then from there, well, we used to be.
We are not.
No, I said, well, at least if we aren't now, I'm not so sure about that. We used to be part of it. You take the cold case file, a group of detectives that look into cold case murders and whatnot. That consists of a group of detectives from some of the various towns.
Well, that's coordinated through the state's attorney's office.
Right, but for like trash, all right, because 2 things are going to happen. 2 things, in my neverly humble opinion, 2 things are going to happen. Being on the outside with as much information as we can get from the inside, because we don't have everything, sort of like FOI kind of stuff.
There's a handbook here.
Oh, there's a handbook. Let me read through that real quick, and I get a blank check at the back. Now, 2 things are going to happen. Either privatization of many services will come out of this, where you can get real corruption, or regionalism. Because your public works could be regionalized. I mean, the landfill is regional. Every town doesn't have its own landfill, all right? So,
they just dump it all here.
They just dump it all here. Okay, every town doesn't have its own hospital. I mean, there's a lot of regionalization when it comes to sharing, the things we don't want in our backyard, we can put in Hartford. But then when it comes to things like schools and, certain aspects of government, we want to keep it. We want to keep it in. I think that the argument could be made now more than ever that we can't afford to do business that way, because it's not done that way in many states.
Well, I think the other part of it is that there's that strength in numbers. And if we started, you talked about it in the past, but even, whether it's purchasing police cruisers, purchasing road salt, and I know there's some small collaborations like through CROG, the Capital Region Council of Governments, where they will, I know like when they were buying laptops for the cruisers, all the towns pooled together and, and bought them and got much better numbers. But, to the best of my knowledge, like every town goes out and buys their road salt. Every town goes out and buys their sand and things like that. If you were doing it as a region, buying much larger numbers, the price is naturally, I would assume, going to go down. But there's also, and we talk a lot about Hartford sharing an unfair burden, but most towns, when they need a bomb squad or they need a dive team, things like that, they're calling Hartford. When they need hostage negotiators. A couple years ago, when the police officer was shot and killed in Newington, for the major portion of the time of that, it was Hartford that was down there with their SWAT team, their negotiators, and I think in the tail end, the state came in and did something. But we provide a large part of that. But as far as the regionalization, like with the accident reconstruction team, there was under Chief Harnett, one of his buddies came in and did a study for $200,000. And they wanted to, start training a bunch of detectives in the major crime squad for accident reconstruction, go out and buy all the laser equipment and everything. And at the time, Chief Harnett wouldn't give me the report, the study that was done. And when Darrell Roberts became chief, he said, I've got it. Take a look at it, read it. Let me know if you see anything in there that makes sense. So one of the things I talked to the chief about was that, this idea of taking 5 or 6 detectives from major crimes, sending them off to a specialized school. I said, Chief, this is a perfect opportunity to get into the regionalization. Why don't you assign somebody from the traffic division to this regional team? Then you'll use all their equipment. You don't need to go out and buy everything and, buy a big van and all this stuff, and you become part of the region. And I would venture to guess some of our suburban towns have far more fatal accidents than what we have here in Hartford. You don't have the opportunity to get up to the high speeds and, on straightaways and things like you do out in Ellington or, out in these back roads. So I don't think that ever went anywhere, but that's the type of thing we should be looking at.
But you still could send people to specialized schools in Illinois and Florida, and then...
Yeah, but why send 6 people when you only need to send one to be part of the team?
That person comes back, dispatch them to a regional investigative unit.
That's like taking 11 people to Orlando to learn about what's available for Munis. It doesn't make sense.
You can do that. Just pick up a catalog and go online.
Send one person down and pick up everything and come back and report.
You weren't listening, Kevin. I didn't say send a tribe down. I said you send a man or two to Illinois, to Florida, to a specialized school, and then have that person come back and also help train someone, from in your town.
I don't know what's involved with the certification and what has to be done.
Certification is heavy. When you finish those schools, you're...
But I mean, I don't know if you're eligible to come back and then train people and have them certified. But regardless, for the number of times we would need somebody trained in fatal accident reconstruction, if we've had, maybe 6 or 8 in the city for the entire year. So it's not on a regular basis.
And bear in mind, Hartford, unlike many other towns, we run our own police academy. And accident investigation is part of the program.
Yeah. So. But
we are raising this question. I was listening to one of the local talk shows on NPR yesterday, I think it was, or the day before. It was Tuesday because there was a big state budget meeting. Gavel in, gavel out.
Right.
But heard one of our elected officials talking about the fact that regionalism is a conversation being had.
Right.
And so we would do well. I don't know how that conversation is being had and with the council or any other folk, but I think we would do well to be having the conversation. And in fact, and to begin having this conversation amongst the community. How do you have this conversation amongst the community? We do have not just government, but there are a number of organizations that are regionally based. CREC is regionally based, for example, in education. So, I mean, and to have kind of some cross-pollination, some cross-conversations across, disciplines and professions. We were talking about police stuff right here, public safety, what I would call. But there are conversations that should be having along the way.
You brought up a good example with CREC. CREC, I think, has done from what I've seen, has done a great job of managing schools, which are night and day from Hartford schools. So that, I think that pushes forward the argument for, and I don't know how CREC is set up, whether they're a private, I believe they're a private company. But I'm not sure of what their structure is. But, for lack of a better term, it makes you look toward privatization. And CREC is actually the Capital Region Education Council. So it may be a governmental body of some sort.
Quasi type, one of those. But if you look at CREC, and I really can't speak on CREC's management or anything like that because I've not taken the time to look at it. But as an observation, and how they successfully run and manage, whether it's because they get selected students, all that other stuff are factors to any success and all those kinds of things. But it would seem that CREC is forward thinking in terms of the day may come when we might be positioned to run all of the schools within the region. And so, that just a forward thinking attitude in how you run things and a track record of good performance. The teachers seem to have a good experience with CREC. CREC is in all kinds of different towns. So, whether it's Bloomfield, whether it's over in East Hartford, whether, any of the towns that it serves, CREC schools are always schools that most people want to try to get their kids in.
And they're located right here in Hartford on Willis Street.
Well, their administrative headquarters is over here. But if you have something that's successful, that people want, few people resist receiving it. Now, if you try to say, well, let Hartford manage the region as a seat of government, all right, it would be a conversation killer before you got started, So, I mean, the necessity of good governance and good management, no matter what it is that you're governing or managing, is paramount, particularly in these tough economic times.
They're pretty good.
Lots of entities are going to be affected by this. The nonprofit sector.
The end of the counter looks like he wants to jump in.
Yeah, I just want to say something earlier that John was talking about the governor proposing cuts and stuff like that. One area that the governor should look is within the Department of Corrections. There are 18 facilities in the state of Connecticut. You got one warden and two deputy wardens.
Need 20.
They're making over $100,000 a year. One of the facilities I think would be closing, that's the Webster Correctional Facility, which is the lowest security risk, which is a level 2. But let's look at MYI. They house about 700-800 youthful offenders. They still have one warden and two deputy wardens. Other major facilities hold about 1,500, like Osborne, McDougal. If one warden with their two deputy can control a major facility, I think they can control a smaller facility by cutting. So one thing the governor should do is cut one deputy commissioner from each facility. That's saving $1.7 million approximate. If you're going over 100,000 for each deputy commissioner. And I think that's an area where the state should look. And the Hartford delegation, the state reps should get together, meet with their caucuses and present that to the governor. And most of these commissioners, I mean, they're making 110, 150,000. That would be a big saving. And these are not offenders that are out in the streets. They're housed in a facility, which they're easier to control and maintain. Yeah, Gerry.
Okay. I'm not familiar with what it takes to run those facilities. Okay, but before the cuts are made, don't you think there needs to be some type of study to see if?
I tell you that from experience. I've been in the system, and I know how the system really operates and how it works in the inside, unlike most of the legislators that they know from the outside. I've been on both sides of the spectrum, Jerry.
But that's not the argument, Angel. What I'm
No, you
saying
said
here,
if- why don't we sit down and discuss it, Jerry?
But
I've seen it with my own eyes.
they need to be a professional study to see whether
Well, Jerry,
or not we really.
You know, enter in the politician. You know, it reminds me of a quote out of the Star Wars movie. You know, I wasn't elected to watch my to watch my people die while this legislative body argues the point in caucus here. I mean, we're gonna have a study that'll take 3 years to figure out how we should save the cost of the study. I think it's almost a self-evident truth. Whatever we cut, we're going to look at the ramifications.
Sure.
That's a given. So I think when the suggestion is made, what do we cut in the police department? We understand that we're going to see, will this affect services?
Or how that will affect
How it
services.
will affect them.
That's right.
That's axiom. It's self-evident. But we need to think of where we could cut. And as far as I would be concerned, everything is on the table. And if I was going to cut, it would be, what do we need? 3% across the board. Just go across the board. You can. There's fat everywhere.
Yeah, and this is not rocket science.
No.
It's not. It's like we do in our own homes. Right now, everybody's sucking wind a little bit. So
Right.
you look at what can be cut, what can you go without, and maybe that's, fewer times eating out, maybe that, whatever your personal decisions are, and you get to make those discriminations. I think here in the state and in our city, we do have the right to have conversation. What I am appalled about, and I really am appalled, here in our city, we're not talking at all. There's no public conversation of our leaders about anything. Everything is fine as far as they can. No, everything's fine, and the house is on fire. At least at the state, while there's this great gulf of division between the governor and the legislature, they are in deep conversations about it. There are good people on both sides of the argument, and people in the middle trying to ferret out what's happening. I do know a couple of the folk that are around the table with the governor, who are her advisors around fiscal matters, and there's some good folk there. Mm-hmm. There's some folk that I think but there's some good folk as well, and I think
You got to listen to them, though.
you do. And that's another little piece of this, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, you have your picks of who you listen to and who you don't. But there are good folk who are at least suggesting good things and good proposals, and we got to come together some kind of way.
And while you're mentioning leadership and things, there's a gift I forgot. I left it under the tree. Seriously, it was for Pedro Segura, and it was the book of the best magic tricks. He's going to need that as council president to figure out. It's going to take magic to get us out of this mess. And Pedro, I apologize. I forgot your gift, but it's still under the tree.
And congratulations, Council President Segura.
Yeah. Can we talk about how cold it is?
Outside?
It's very cold outside, and it just reminds me that there are people on the streets. And we talked about homelessness and the shelter conversation. I found it just...
Well, do you have a church big enough to house some people?
Well, yeah.
Well, the no freeze shelter is open.
Yeah, but I found that really bizarre that the governor helps to open up the place right there on the Capitol Hill there.
After we talked about it,
Right after we talked about it, that's first off. And
they
that
still claim rightness.
yeah. But if you look at the cuts she has proposed, it's the whole homeless shelter thing is gone.
But John, the issue,
Ooh-wee.
a lot of what we have in government, nobody wants to see a lot of the cuts. Whether it's for AIDS prevention, HIV care, homeless, senior programs, education. Nobody wants to see those cuts, but until we start printing our own money, we just can't afford them. So the cuts have to come from somewhere. And I think, even if you look at, youth services was mentioned a little while ago. When you get a $500,000 grant and $275,000 of that goes to adults for administration,
Yeah.
something's wrong. The money's not going where it should be
Yeah.
going. It's going into people's pockets to make City Hall and government more top-heavy than it already is. You know, Gerry mentioned public safety and police cuts. Yeah, if we took a couple of deputy chiefs or assistant chiefs out of the mix, that would probably affect the way police services are delivered. But you got to do it. You know, are these people going to work for free when we tell them there's no money to pay them? I doubt it. So it's got to come from somewhere. There's going to be tough cuts made. I think that's probably part of the reason you see Governor Rell not running again. But they're tough decisions that have to be made.
To piggyback on that, if you make the cuts, and cuts will be made, it also means that you have to revamp how you go about doing things.
Things have to be done.
Yeah, but that's where we need leaders that are going to step up and say, we don't want excuses, we want results. Here's what you're being given, make it work.
Yep.
And you find a way to make it
I'm
work.
quite sure that some of us here, we could look at some areas and say, well, you know, this can be done a different way.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Right.
When you tell them that's the way it's got to be, that's the way it's got to be.
Okay, I gotta go.
All right. Merry Christmas.
Thank to all of you, and you too, Kevin. And by the way, Kevin, are you Catholic?
Am I what?
Are you Catholic?
Sometimes.
Okay. I'm quite sure you were brought up, you know, on Friday to Saturday, you would go to confession. But take a few hours for your confession.
See, Gerry, there's something else in the Bible that says something about don't judge lest you be
Judge not
judged.
lest ye be judged.
Lord have mercy.
Good luck on the dentures with the appointment you're going to.
No dentist, okay. Implants.
Angel, you can stay. You don't have to go just because
He's
Gerry's
got to
going.
go to
Dad's
the,
going to the hospital.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
and our prayers go with your family. And you know, we're asking those of you out there to pray for Angel and his family. His father's gonna have surgery this morning.
Thank you.
All right, God bless you. It's right there on there you go. All right, well, as we wind down the program,
Still got a half hour left, don't we?
well, yeah, still winding down. But the issue around how money is spent, I think it's something that really needs to be looked at. Because there are ways, you know, things are duplicated in an unnecessary manner. You know, you have a Department of Youth Services, which I guess has merit when you've got a lot of, you know, you got a lot of butter, you butter everything, fried chicken in it and all this other stuff. But you know, chicken fried and buttered tastes good, but there's some consequences down the road for you that aren't too medically sound. We've got schools. Why not open the schools, let the youth use some of those gyms? I don't think that the youth will be impacted when you make certain cuts to certain departments if you use other existing departments to fill in those gaps. If you opened up some of the schools so that the community can use some of these new schools, and you have some community volunteers that have been displaced because, of course, nonprofits aren't going to be getting the money they need. But, you know, at the heart of the nonprofit is the mission. And most nonprofit people got into it because of the mission, not the money. So what they really need is access to space, equipment. I mean, you could get parents to volunteer to come and watch as kids play basketball, as kids swim. You know, you get people rise up in the community, swimming coaches, because they can go to the school that has the pool where kids could swim. Kids are in school all day long. Okay? So if cutting youth services somehow will impact the children, you mean to tell me we can't meet whatever need is left as a vacuum by cutting youth services at the school?
But see, that's, you know, another big part of the problem, though, is, you know, and you hear this all the time. Well, you know, when they were cutting back the libraries, oh, we're going to have to shut libraries down because we don't have the staff. There's got to be hundreds of people that live in this city that are either retired teachers, retired educators, and are looking for something to do and would volunteer to go in there and work in a library. The same thing with the schools. You go through, these schools are filthy. The police department's filthy. You know, why don't we get volunteers or, you know, whatever to come in and paint? Oh, unions. We can't do that. The unions won't allow it. The unions won't allow volunteers to come into a library. Well, too bad. It's our city, it's not the union city, and I know a lot of union members do live in the city. And for someone that's running for mayor, I'm speaking for myself, not for you, because I know the unions have a lot of clout. But it's time we start asking the unions to be part of the solution. We want to keep schools open a little bit later. Ask a couple teachers, 1 or 2 days a month, would you be willing to stay till 6 and volunteer a few hours to work with kids? And I think you'd see results, even if it's kids that are having difficulty, reading or spelling, whatever, to have a couple teachers sit around and mentor them for a couple hours. Those are the type of solutions that, we want people to be part of the solution, not continue to be part of the problem. Yeah. Even in the mayor's office, look at the people that are making salaries there, huge amounts, that think nothing of going to a prayer rally or something for the mayor on their own time. When's the last time somebody's asked them to go volunteer in the community and do something?
Yeah, and what's the incentive to do so? I think
the incentive should be that you feel good about it when you're done.
Well, see, that's provided that people really care. Right. And I think I have found that in some of these governmental settings, most people just want to make their 20 or their 25 years.
Yeah, you hear that all the time.
That this sense of care and concern, somehow, I don't know what happens, but it gets watered out. And I've seen it in teachers and administrators in the schools in particular, the kind of apathy that I don't know, that maybe a call for conscience might be the case. I've been thinking about, how many of my colleagues in faith communities may have to now, for real, open the door 24/7.
Well, I don't think the churches are exempt from this.
No,
either.
they're not. And how many on Main Street there? How many churches we got? How many buildings we got?
Right.
And how many programs that other than Sunday and Wednesday, Thursday night Bible study and choir rehearsal,
And are closed.
and closed, locked.
Hard times bring people together. Difficult times. And there's a silver lining in every cloud, and I think if the right leadership emerges from this, and when I say leadership, I mean leadership in all sectors. If the right leadership emerges from this, we could have a stronger community, a more united community, because for political gain, the community, not only in Hartford but across the nation, has been divided, subdivided, redivided almost into little blocks, so that you can maximize the politician can maximize his opportunity by targeting each and every person to tell them what they want to hear, so that he or she could get elected.
I think that's by design, though. That's
Yes.
the divide and conquer mentality. You don't want any strength in numbers, because then those people may start doing something and be able to actually affect some change.
But it's up to the people to actually start to make that change. The change is not going to come from government. The change is going to come from the people whose government this is. And it has to be the people that say, look, we're fed up with this. This is not going to be the status quo anymore. And to understand that the common interest is good governance. That doesn't put on the back burner your particular interests, because some communities have opposing interests. Some communities may not even get along. But one thing we need as a community, whether we agree with one community or not, is good governance. And without good governance, the whole thing collapses. And so I think it's vitally important that that we hold government accountable, and we start demanding from government solutions that work and make sense. Not solutions that are necessarily going to pay the salary of those in government, but solutions that run efficient services that the government we have elected or put in place is going to provide. It boggles my mind that we have to have an adversarial relationship between the city administration and every single union. I mean, what if you went to work and it was like that? How long would you stay as an employee? Don't eat that. The mayor needs that for his...
No, I bought it. It just came from the gift shop.
Oh.
I just had to make sure the key wasn't in there. I don't want to break a tooth and end up at the dentist with Gerry.
Lord have mercy. Well, I think the question could be asked, how do you do this? Mm-hmm. How do you? I'm thinking about Michael Jackson and the song he recorded on the Bad album. Mm-hmm. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking that person in the mirror, me, to change my ways. Mm-hmm. And then the lyric says in the chorus, no message could be any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make that change. And I think ultimately,
could you do that with the actual melody?
Yeah, I could. But
he can.
I think for me, mm-hmm. what we're talking about in this Yuletide Christmas season mm-hmm. is a message. Again, for me as a Christian, I hear the message of the homeless first Holy Family. Mm-hmm. Who? This is my sermon for Sunday. Don't you know? But stay tuned. You'll hear that later. About this homeless family. Mm-hmm. You know, no place to lay their head, looking for a place to hang out, and finding
building mangers around the city.
Right. We find in that message, we find that they did find a place, and that place became a part of a community, and the mm-hmm. community came along to be of service for that family, but for everybody. Everybody mm-hmm. seemed to get a takeaway in that, and I think that's the message of this season. For me, we talked about what our year end. What does this really mean? Well, I think it says, at least for us in this One Hartford conversation, that we are part of a community, and we got to fight, struggle, argue, but find the middle way. Find the way that we can walk together, because we're going to need one another.
Well, you're a scholar of the Bible. Was it true that the manger that Jesus was born in, they wouldn't let him use the one in downtown Jerusalem? He had to go to the outskirts because they didn't want that type of element in downtown Jerusalem?
Well, I'm laughing because Bethlehem is really a suburb of Jerusalem. It's only a few miles from Jerusalem to Bethlehem. But of course, the biblical narrative says...
I was thinking Jerusalem. You're right, it's Bethlehem. That's where the star was.
That's right. But to be fair, Jesus' family was from Nazareth, and that's a long way away from right. Bethlehem. And
so that must have been like West Hartford. Right?
Well, you said something that I thought was interesting about we fight, we struggle. And I think perhaps that's what's actually missing. The fighting, the struggling, the give and take, the tension, the conflict, because until you have that, it can't be resolved. Mm-hmm. And I think in an effort to avoid any kind of opposition, people's conversations are held in vacuums. You know, your conversation is held with me. Then I have a conversation with him. Then I have a conversation with them. And then I tell all of you what we're going to do as a result of all the conversations I've had. And as the grand poobah and great brain, I will delegate to everybody what the decisions are going to make. And of course, there's not been conversation among the parties who really have a stake in this, which all the varying communities with the different interests. And it needs to actually happen so that you can make some compromise. And then when people generally compromise, they agree to disagree about what they disagree, and then hold each other accountable to deliver on the things that they've come to agree upon. And so the broader conversation that you talked about earlier is something that has to happen if the community is going to go forward. Otherwise, Hartford will always be a divided town and never move forward.
I guess we're running out of time. To everybody that I gave gifts for, feel free to re-gift if you want. Gerry already left his Splenda here. But this was all done in fun. I'm sure there are people that will be offended, but...
Well, we love you all. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And to all.
Oh, we're not supposed to say Merry Christmas anymore. Happy Holidays.
Happy Holidays.
Happy Holidays. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Peace.
Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah.
Happy New Year.
Bye bye.
And to our newest Red Sox fan. You suck, dude.